The sun beat down mercilessly on the shimmering surface of the community pool, children laughing and splashing in pure summer joy. Everything seemed like a picture-perfect Saturday until the shrill voice of a woman shattered the air like broken glass. "Get her out. She's going to contaminate the water." All heads turned. My daughter, 8 years old, sat at the edge of the shallow end, her legs dangling in the cool blue, a wide smile stretching across her delicate face. The joy in her eyes froze as the woman marched forward. Her name was Karen, board member of the HOA, self-proclaimed protector of the neighborhood, and, as I would come to learn, the face of the cruelty that hid behind manicured lawns and white picket fences. Karen's perfectly manicured finger jabbed through the air as she screamed, "This is a health hazard. She shouldn't be here. She's not clean." My daughter's smile disappeared. Her tiny hands trembled as she tried to pull herself out of the pool, confused and frightened. I was just steps away, stunned, paralyzed by the venom in the woman's voice, the way everyone around us stood frozen, unsure of what to say. Lifeguards hesitated, unsure of their authority. One of them muttered something into his walkie-talkie. Another walked toward my daughter, who was now crying, her soft sobs barely audible over Karen's rant. "I don't care if she's disabled," Karen hissed, stepping forward like a wolf circling prey. "She doesn't belong here. My kids swim here. Our children could get sick." The world slowed around me. The sound of water dripping from the slide. The click of sandals on concrete. My daughter gasping for breath, not because of her condition, but because of humiliation. I ran to her, but Karen blocked me. "You're putting all of us at risk," she said, her voice shaking not from fear, but from outrage. Security was called. HOA members arrived within minutes. The pool was temporarily closed, not because of a rule violation, but because Karen demanded it. As they led my daughter away, wet towel clutched around her shoulders, she asked me in a whisper I will never forget, "Did I do something wrong, Mommy?" I choked on my own breath, heart shattering into pieces. I'd never recover. The kids around us stared. Some parents turned away. Others filmed in silence, watching a scene unfold that didn't belong in a community, let alone a civilized society. As we walked out of the gate, past the rustling hedges and the perfectly trimmed rose bushes, Karen shouted one last time for everyone to hear, "This is why we have rules." My daughter flinched, and in that moment, beneath the cruel heat of the afternoon sun, I realized something I never expected when we moved here. This neighborhood, this so-called community, wasn't a haven. It was a prison of judgment, a place where kindness came second to control, a place where my disabled daughter wasn't welcome, not because she couldn't swim, but because someone decided she didn't deserve to. And I knew this wasn't going to end here. It all began with a dream. After years of bouncing between cramped apartments and noisy neighborhoods, I finally found a place where I believed my daughter could grow up safe, happy, and most importantly, free. It was a quiet suburban community tucked away from the chaos of the city, with winding sidewalks, tree-lined streets, and that postcard-perfect charm every real estate brochure promises. I was a single father doing the best I could. My wife had passed away just after our daughter was born, an unexpected complication during delivery. From that day on, I made a vow my little girl would never feel alone, never feel unloved, and never feel less than the world around her. Her name is Lila. Born with a rare neurological condition, she's unable to walk without assistance and uses a lightweight, custom wheelchair to get around. But if you ever saw her smile, you'd forget the chair altogether. Her laugh? It could melt the coldest heart in seconds. Lila sees the world like it's full of wonder, even when it doesn't always return the favor. Every morning, she'd sit by the window, her sketchbook on her lap, drawing suns with faces and trees that talked. Her favorite color was purple, not the dark kind, but that soft lilac shade you see in cotton candy clouds. "It's the color of imagination," she once told me. Lila didn't ask for much. She didn't throw tantrums, didn't whine when things got tough. Instead, she navigated life with a kind of silent bravery that made me ache with pride and sorrow all at once. The stairs we couldn't climb, the playgrounds without ramps, The birthday parties she was never invited to. Every injustice she met with a shrug and a small, tired smile that broke me in ways I can't describe. So, when we moved into this new community, this fresh start, I dared to hope again. The first day we arrived, Lila noticed the pool through the iron bars near the leasing office. Her eyes widened. "Daddy, look, a pool. Can I try it?" I remember the way her hands trembled with excitement as they clutched the wheels of her chair. I knelt beside her, brushing her hair out of her face. "Of course, baby," I said. "You'll swim all summer long." She squealed. An actual squeal, the kind I hadn't heard since she got sick last fall. In that moment, she wasn't a little girl in a wheelchair. She was just a kid with a dream. We met a few neighbors that day. Most were polite, all smiles and handshakes. Some glanced at Lila, then looked away quickly, pretending not to notice. I was used to that. What I wasn't used to, what I wasn't ready for, was the woman who stood at the end of the sidewalk, sunglasses on, lips tight, arms crossed. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just watched. I didn't know her name then. I didn't know the war she'd eventually declare on my daughter's happiness. But something about the way she looked at Lila made my stomach twist. Still, I shook it off. I didn't want to believe the worst. Back at our new house, Lila decorated her room with drawings of pools and summer adventures. "Can we go tomorrow?" she asked every night that week. And every night, I promised her we would. I even bought her a new swimsuit, purple, of course. She hung it on the closet door like it was a prized trophy, already imagining the moment she'd wear it for the first time. That first swim meant everything to her. And for a few precious days, I believed we had finally found peace. It started small, as these things often do. So small, in fact, that I almost missed it. A glance too long. A smile that never quite reached the eyes. The faintest wrinkle of a nose, as if something unpleasant had passed by. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Everyone has their own way of adjusting to new neighbors, I told myself. But there was something about her, something unnerving. Karen lived 3 houses down on the corner lot with the white shutters and the garden that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Every flower bloomed perfectly in line, not a single weed in sight. Her porch had 2 American flags, a wind chime that never made a sound, and a camera aimed at the sidewalk. She walked her 2 Pomeranians every morning at exactly 7:30 and waved to the same people, never us. Not once. She'd pass by while Lila and I waited for her school van, and her expression would remain frozen in place, lips tight, brows slightly raised, like we were some oddity she couldn't quite figure out. The first time we took Lila to the pool was magical. She had begged me for days, and I finally carved out time after work. We packed her favorite towel, the purple one with dolphins, and a water-safe floaty designed for kids like her. As we reached the pool gate, I saw Karen reclining in a lounger, sunglasses on, a paperback in her lap. I nodded politely. She didn't nod back. Lila was ecstatic. The other kids splashed around, a few looked her way curiously, but none said anything cruel. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this community would prove me wrong. But as I helped Lila into the pool and held her gently as she floated for the first time, I caught the look on Karen's face. Her book was closed now, her gaze locked on my daughter like a hawk. Cold, analytical, distant. When we left that day, I noticed Karen standing near the pool bulletin board. She seemed to be inspecting the posted rules. I didn't think much of it until the next morning when I found a folded paper on our doorstep. It was an HOA guideline printout highlighted in neon yellow. All swimmers must be fully continent and free from open wounds or bodily discharge. Children under 12 must be accompanied by an adult. At the bottom, in thick black marker, rules exist for a reason. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. Over the next week, more things started to happen. Subtle things. I caught Karen speaking to another parent at the mailbox, gesturing toward her home. The woman glanced over at me and gave a tight, uncomfortable smile. On trash day, our cans were mysteriously knocked over. Packages arrived opened. A neighbor, Mr. Fletcher, casually mentioned to me, "Some folks are saying your girl might not be safe in pool." Something about hygiene. You know how rumors are. No, I didn't know. Not like this. Then came the email from the HOA. A formal complaint had been submitted regarding unsanitary and potentially unsafe use of the pool by a minor with known medical limitations. My hands shook as I read it. No name attached, just a concerned resident. But I knew. We all knew. I called the HOA directly, my voice barely steady. My daughter has every right to be in that pool. I told them. She uses medically approved equipment. She's cleaner and more disciplined than most kids I know. The woman on the line hesitated. Sir, I understand, but when multiple residents raise concerns, we're obligated to review them. Please don't take it personally. Multiple residents, I whispered, staring out the window as Karen watered her roses, smiling sweetly at a passing jogger. I didn't tell Lila. I couldn't. She still asked every day if we could go back to the pool. And each time I found an excuse, too tired, too much work, maybe tomorrow, she started to notice. Her sketches grew darker, fewer smiles, more clouds. She once drew a little girl in a wheelchair sitting beside a pool she wasn't allowed to enter while stick figures swam and laughed behind the gate. That's when I realized the war had begun. And Karen had fired the first shot. The sky was painted with soft pastel hues, the sun just beginning its descent into evening. It was the perfect summer day, warm with a gentle breeze that danced over the surface of the community pool, sending ripples glistening like 1,000 diamonds. I remember it clearly, too clearly. It was the day my daughter finally wore the swimsuit she'd been waiting to show off for weeks. Purple, with tiny silver stars sewn across the chest. Her hair was pulled back into two little buns, and her eyes sparkled with the kind of joy that made you believe the world could still be kind. We arrived at the pool just after 5 p.m. A few families were already there. Children splashing in the shallow end, teenagers lounging in chairs, adults chatting under umbrellas with coolers and snacks. The usual neighborhood crowd. I wheeled Lila toward the edge of the water, and she clapped her hands with delight. It's finally warm enough. Daddy, I bet I can float by myself today, she squealed. I helped her into her special flotation vest and gently lowered her into the pool. She kicked her legs and twirled in the water, laughter echoing off the surrounding concrete. For those few minutes, nothing else existed. Not the wheelchair, not the stairs, not the world beyond this sunlit corner of joy. Lila was just a little girl, my little girl, floating freely, her smile brighter than the sun overhead. And then the gate creaked open. The sound was sharp, louder than it should have been. Karen stepped in like a storm in stilettos. She wore an all-white blouse and matching hat, her lips pursed so tightly they almost disappeared. A clipboard was tucked under one arm, a phone clutched in the other. Her eyes scanned the pool like a general entering a battlefield. The moment she saw Lila, she froze. Her jaw clenched. I felt my stomach twist. She marched straight to the lifeguard stand, whispering something to the teenage boy on duty. He looked confused, then glanced over at me and Lila. Karen didn't wait for his response. She turned on her heel and strode toward us, heels clicking like gunshots across the pavement. The laughter around the pool dulled. Parents hushed their conversations. Everyone was watching. What is she doing in there? Karen barked, her voice slicing through the air. I stood. Excuse me? She shouldn't be in that water, she snapped, pointing a shaking finger at Lila, who had stopped moving, her smile fading. It's a liability, a health risk. This pool has rules. She's not breaking any rules, I said firmly. She's wearing proper gear. She's supervised. She's just swimming. Karen scoffed. That vest isn't certified. And I highly doubt she's fully hygienic. She could contaminate the water. Lila looked at me, eyes wide, confused. Daddy, am I making the water dirty? No, sweetheart. I said, quickly kneeling beside her. You're doing amazing. Karen's voice rose. If she has a condition, there's no way to guarantee she doesn't have leaks. Germs. Who knows what she's carrying? I've already filed multiple complaints, and no one's taking this seriously. But I will not let my children swim in infected water. The word infected landed like a slap across my face. I stood up, trembling with fury. My daughter is not a disease. She's cleaner than your mouth, Karen. Gasps erupted from nearby chairs. Someone began filming on their phone. The lifeguard approached hesitantly. Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to take your daughter out of the water. Just until we sort this out. Sort what out? I snapped. There's nothing to sort. She has every right to be here. Karen's voice cut through again. I want the pool shut down for sanitation. Immediately. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some parents began ushering their children out of the water. Others just stared, unsure whose side they were supposed to take. Security arrived within minutes, 2 men in polo shirts and radios. They spoke briefly with the lifeguard and Karen, then turned to me. Sir, we've received complaints. We're going to have to ask you and your daughter to leave just for the day. No. Lila shouted suddenly. Please, I didn't do anything wrong. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her arms reached for me as I pulled her from the pool. Her tiny body shivered in the breeze, her swimsuit dripping. I wrapped her in her dolphin towel, but it couldn't warm her. Nothing could. She's crying, someone said nearby, as if shocked that a child humiliated in front of an entire neighborhood would dare to cry. As we turned to leave, Karen folded her arms, smug. Rules exist for a reason, she muttered again, loud enough for everyone to hear. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But I heard Lila's voice soft and trembling in my arms. Daddy, am I bad? And in that moment, as my heart fractured into 1,000 silent pieces, I knew this wasn't just about a pool anymore. This was war, and my little girl was its first casualty. After that day at the pool, something in Lila changed, and it broke me in ways I wasn't prepared for. She stopped drawing. Her purple sketchbook, once filled with colorful pages of underwater castles and laughing kids, now lay untouched on her desk. Her crayons remained in their box. The girl, who once greeted the sun with open arms, now spent her days curled beneath her blankets, staring at the wall in silence. When I asked her if she wanted to go outside, she'd shake her head gently, eyes downcast. They don't want me there, she whispered once. I heard them laugh. At first, I tried to stay strong. I cooked her favorite meals, told her bedtime stories, even put on those silly costumes she used to giggle at. But her laughter was gone, replaced with long silences and sudden flinches whenever she heard water running. The bathtub became a battleground. She'd scream when I tried to help her wash, clutching the sides with trembling fingers, begging, "Don't make me get in. I'll be clean, I promise. I don't want to get in trouble again." One night, I found her crying in her sleep, her fists clenched, her lips mouthing words she couldn't say. I sat beside her, holding her hand through the tremors. I wanted to scream, to break something, to shake the world for what it had done to my daughter. But all I could do was weep in the dark, silently, as not to wake her. I reached out to the HOA the next day. I wrote emails, made phone calls, asked for a formal meeting. I explained everything, what Karen had said, how she had humiliated my child, how Lila hadn't smiled since. Days passed, no reply. When I finally got someone on the phone, they spoke in a careful, overly rehearsed tone. We're aware of the incident. All concerns are being taken seriously, but community health and comfort must be prioritized. Community comfort? I spat into the phone. My daughter can't sleep without nightmares. Is that comfortable enough for you? We understand your frustration, sir. But, as you know, your family has already been involved in multiple complaints. That stopped me. Multiple. Yes, several residents have expressed concern about your family's behavior. One mentioned hostile interactions. Another mentioned aggressive responses at the pool. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just targeting Lila. She was building a case, a narrative, twisting the truth into something grotesque and dangerous, turning our pain into her propaganda. She was telling anyone who'd listen that we were troublemakers, that we were trying to weaponize our child's disability. I even overheard a neighbor one morning whispering on her porch, "It's always the quiet ones that bring the drama." I couldn't believe it. We had lived here less than 3 months, and already we had been cast as pariahs. Lila wasn't just being ignored, she was being erased, written out of the community's picture like she never belonged in the first place. And me? I was the angry father, the one who made things awkward at barbecues, the one people avoided eye contact with at the mailbox. One morning, I found a chalk message scrawled near our driveway. 3 words. Crude, messy handwriting, but the message was loud and clear. She's a freak. I stood there for a long time, chalk still clinging to the concrete, my fists clenched at my sides. Lila hadn't seen it yet. I rushed to wash it away before she woke up. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, I couldn't wash away the truth. We weren't welcome here. Not anymore. Maybe we never were. I stared at the blank screen for hours that night, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. My hands hovered over the keyboard, unsure where to begin. Every word I wanted to write felt too small, too weak, too late, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Not when Lila hadn't laughed in over 2 weeks. Not when she refused to go near the front door. Not when her innocence was being buried under the weight of other people's ignorance. I opened a new document and started typing. I told the story, our story, every detail. The way Karen had screamed at my daughter in front of an entire pool of neighbors. The way no one stopped her. The way the HOA dismissed us with cold, generic responses. I didn't use names. I didn't have to. Anyone with a heart would understand. I posted the story on my personal blog and shared it on social media. Then I uploaded the video. Yes, that video. One of the other parents had recorded it, sent it to me anonymously with a short message. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I should have. The footage was grainy, shaky at times, but clear enough. Karen's voice screaming about contamination. My daughter's cries. Me holding Lila as security escorted us out. It was raw. It was uncomfortable. And it was real. I went to bed, not expecting much. Maybe a few sympathetic comments. A handful of likes. But by morning, everything had changed. The post had gone viral. Thousands of shares. Tens of thousands of comments. People from all over the country, and even overseas, were responding. Parents of disabled children. Teachers. Nurses. Strangers with no connection to us whatsoever. They were outraged. They offered support, prayers, advice. Some shared their own stories. Others demanded action. They tagged news outlets, disability rights organizations, legal experts. One message stood out. I'm a civil rights attorney. What happened to your daughter isn't just wrong, it's actionable. Please reach out if you're ready to fight. Fight. The word felt foreign in my mouth. I had spent so long trying to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to protect Lila by staying under the radar. But silence hadn't protected her. It had only given people like Karen more power. So, I emailed the attorney. Her name was Sophia Navarro, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with a reputation for taking on powerful HOAs and winning. We spoke that same day, and when I shared the video and copies of the HOA's dismissive emails, she didn't hesitate. We're not just going after the HOA, she said. We're going after systemic discrimination. We're going to make them regret treating your daughter like she was disposable. With her guidance, we filed a formal complaint with the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Fair Housing Act, which protects families from discrimination based on disability. We compiled every email, every note, every neighbor statement, even the chalk writing outside our driveway. Sophia helped me reach out to a local journalist who had been covering stories about HOA abuse. Within 48 hours, an article was published titled, Community or Cage? HOA accused of discriminating against disabled child at local pool. That's when the phone calls started. Reporters, talk shows, advocacy groups. News vans showed up at the entrance of our neighborhood. Some neighbors pretended not to notice. Others finally spoke up. Quietly, at first, whispers at the mailbox, notes slipped into my door. One said, I never liked how Karen handled things, but I didn't want to get involved. Another wrote, your daughter didn't deserve any of this. I'm sorry. And then came the petition. It was started by a local mother whose son had autism. She'd been watching everything unfold online and felt compelled to act. Within a week, it had over 50,000 signatures demanding the removal of Karen from the HOA board and a public apology from the association itself. Lila started smiling again. Not fully, not yet, but enough that I saw a flicker of the light that had been dimmed. I showed her some of the messages from strangers, drawings from other kids, photos of people holding signs that read, "Lila deserves to swim, too." One woman from Oregon mailed us a handmade mermaid doll with a note that read, "She floats just like you, brave girl." For the first time since the incident, Lila asked, "Can we go back to the pool one day?" I knelt beside her, tears stinging my eyes. "We will. And next time, no one's going to stop you." We were no longer alone. What Karen didn't realize, what people like her never realize, is that hate is loud, but love is louder. She wanted us to vanish quietly, to leave in shame. But instead, we were growing louder, stronger. We had a voice now, and we were done being silent. The community room inside the clubhouse had never seen this many people. Rows of metal chairs were lined up wall to wall, every one of them filled with residents, reporters, and advocates from local disability rights groups. Cameras rolled in the back corners, the red lights blinking like watchful eyes. At the front of the room sat the HOA board, 5 members behind a long folding table draped in a white cloth. In the center was Karen, dressed in a sharp navy blazer and pearl earrings, her posture stiff, her jaw locked in visible defiance. I sat near the front, Lila in my lap. Her hands were wrapped around the same dolphin towel she'd been clutching since the day at the pool. Her eyes moved nervously across the room, then to the microphone placed in the center aisle. I kissed the top of her head. "You don't have to say anything," I whispered. "Just being here is more than enough." She nodded slowly, but I could see the determination beginning to flicker behind her fear. The meeting began with the usual HOA formality, roll call, approval of minutes, but it was clear everyone was waiting for one thing. When the agenda reached Item 7, Community Conduct Complaint, Pool Incident Involving Minor, the room fell silent. Karen was the first to speak. She stood, clearing her throat dramatically, and faced the crowd. "I want to make it absolutely clear," she began, "that my concern has always been for the health and safety of our residents. That pool is a shared space, and I believed, based on medical risk, that a child with health issues posed a hygiene concern." There were audible gasps. Someone muttered, "Unbelievable," while another person shook their head in disgust. Karen pressed on. "It was never personal. I followed protocol. I consulted HOA regulations. I filed formal complaints. I didn't yell. I enforced community rules. I rose from my seat. Should I play the video again?" I asked, my voice calm but cutting. "The one where you screamed, 'She'll contaminate the water'? The one where my daughter cried while you accused her of being a health hazard in front of dozens of people?" Karen's face reddened. "That video was taken out of context. You are the context," I said, my voice rising now. "You didn't see a child. You saw a problem, and you tried to erase her." The board president, a tired-looking man with silver hair and weary eyes, cleared his throat. "We've received over 200 complaints from residents and national disability advocates. This is no longer just an internal matter. We have to address it transparently." He turned to me. "Sir, would you like to make a formal statement?" I helped Lila stand, supporting her as we walked to the microphone together. Her little hands gripped the podium as she looked out over the sea of faces. She took a shaky breath. "I just wanted to swim, like the other kids," she said, her voice small but clear. "I didn't do anything bad. I was happy. She made me feel dirty, like I didn't belong. But I do. I do belong." The room erupted into quiet sobs and muffled sniffles. A woman in the back held her chest. Another man wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Even one of the board members looked away, his face tense with emotion. Karen shifted uncomfortably in her seat, eyes fixed on a point in the carpet. The board president leaned forward. "Thank you, Lila. You're incredibly brave." He looked to the other board members, then addressed the room. Per HOA bylaws, A board member may be removed by vote if they are found to have acted in a manner detrimental to the community. He didn't need to finish. The vote was unanimous. Karen was removed from her position on the board. She stood, stunned. This is outrageous. I was doing what I thought was right. The crowd clapped, not for her, but for Lila, for her courage, for the truth finally being acknowledged. As Karen stormed out, defeated and humiliated, I lifted Lila into my arms, her face buried into my shoulder, but I could feel her smile against my neck. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt seen. And this time, no one would dare make her feel small again. The pool looked different that day, not because the water sparkled more or the sun shone brighter, but because something invisible had shifted. It felt lighter, freer. The gate that once symbolized exclusion now swung open with a quiet invitation. Balloons floated on both sides, a bright, "Welcome back, Lila," banner strung above the entrance. Neighbors stood along the edges of the pool, clapping and smiling, not out of obligation, but from something real, something earned. Lila sat in her chair at the edge, wrapped in her purple towel, peeking at the water with cautious eyes. She hadn't been near it since the incident. I knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's your pool, too," I said softly. "They finally know that now." She nodded, slowly. Then she reached for the edge and, with my help, lowered herself into the shallow end. The crowd hushed as she floated gently into the water. Then, someone began to clap. Another joined. And within seconds, the air erupted in cheers. Children swam up to her. One offered a beach ball. Another said, "Want a race?" Lila laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in what felt like ages. It was the kind of sound that cleared storm clouds, that stitched wounds you thought would never heal. Afterward, the HOA board made an announcement. A new policy had been unanimously passed. All community spaces shall be accessible and inclusive to residents of all abilities. Discrimination of any form will result in immediate disciplinary action. They called it the Lila Clause. Neighbors who once looked away now came forward. Apologies were made, some quiet, some tearful. One woman handed Lila a bouquet of daisies. "You taught us how to be better," she said. That night, as I tucked Lila into bed, she looked up at me and whispered, "I'm not scared of the water anymore." I smiled, brushing a damp curl from her forehead. "You never had to be, sweetheart," I said. "The water was always yours. We just had to remind the world of that." The screen fades to black for a moment. Then Lila's laugh echoes softly, overlaid with the image of her floating in the pool, arms stretched wide, face turned toward the sun. A voiceover begins, calm and steady, but full of quiet fire. Disability isn't a disease, but ignorance is. The image shifts to footage of real children, some in wheelchairs, others with visible or invisible disabilities, playing, learning, smiling, simply being. Then it cuts to cold, hard numbers. 1 in 4 Americans lives with a disability. Yet, over 60% of disabled children report feeling excluded in public spaces. HOA-led discrimination is one of the least reported but most persistent forms of quiet segregation in U.S. neighborhoods. We like to believe that injustice only exists in headlines, that cruelty wears a mask of violence, but sometimes it hides behind pool rules, behind silence, behind someone too afraid to speak up. A close-up of Lila's hand reaching into the water fades into a slow montage of protest signs, compassionate letters, and faces of people who spoke out. This wasn't just about one little girl and a pool. This was about every person who's ever been told they don't belong. About every child whose laughter was stolen by someone else's fear. Now, the video transitions to black and white footage of Karen walking out of the HOA, hearing the echo of the gavel still in the background. Then color returns, with Lila, triumphant, surrounded by love. The voiceover softens. You have a voice. You have a choice. And you can choose to use it for good. The music swells slightly. Hopeful, uplifting. Comment below if you believe every child deserves a place to belong. Share this story if you've ever seen someone treated unfairly and stayed silent. Like this video if Lila's bravery moved you. And subscribe, because here we don't just tell stories. We stand for something. The final image, Lila standing at the pool gate, holding it open not just for herself, but for every child who ever felt locked out. Fade to black. Text on screen, every voice matters, especially the quiet ones.